Why punishment? Intellectuals traditionally raise objections regarding the concept of resurrection and punishment. They ask, how can God punish when God is love? They forget that one may love his child immensely, yet still punish him with striking, withholding his allowance, disciplining, and reprimanding. The more his love for his son increases, the more his concern for his discipline increases. If he were negligent in his upbringing, people would accuse him of being a neglectful father who does not care for his children adequately. So what about the Lord, who is the supreme educator? Indeed, the very word Lord, Rab, is derived from tarbiyah, upbringing, education. The reality is that the phrase, God is love, is a broad expression that many misunderstand, attributing to it an absolute meaning and imagining that God is love in an absolute sense. This is incorrect. Does God love oppression, for example? Impossible. It is impossible for God to love oppression and the oppressors, and for the oppressor and the oppressed to be equal in his sight. This conception of divine power is intellectual chaos. It is necessary, in fact, for God to have absolute supremacy over all oppressors, to be an absolute omnipotent who possesses power over all the powerful, to be mighty over the arrogant, to abase the abasers, to be powerful over all the strong, and to be the just judge who places every human being in his proper rank and station. Based on the disciplined laws we observe around us in matter, space, and the heavens, our deduction of divine justice is a sound deduction that gives the attribute to its possessor. All the evidence at our disposal serves to confirm the attribute of divine justice, system, wisdom, and management. Those who deny system and justice are the ones who need to establish proof and provide evidence for their denial, not those who believe in the system. As for those who deny punishment absolutely and deny that man is a creature subject to a power higher than him and laws above him, we call them to a look at the conditions of their earthly world, a look at this world without needing to assume an hereafter. No one has been spared the pain of a toothache that pierces the brain and splits the head like a saw, or renal colic, wretched migraines, cartilage pain, or bone marrow pain. These are types of hellfire known to anyone misfortune has thrown into their experience. A visit to the burn unit in Qasr al-Aini will convince the observer that there is a vast difference between a burned, disfigured man screaming in his bandages and the state of a man sipping a cup of tea in relaxation and pleasure on the shore of the Nile with a beauty fondling him next to him. Punishment is a tangible reality, and man is a creature subject to a power higher than him, helpless in the grasp of that power. It matters little whether one calls this power God or whether the atheist calls it nature, natural laws, or the law of laws. This evasion is nothing but verbal sophistry. The important thing is that he finds no alternative but to acknowledge that there is a power that transcends man and events, and that this power punishes and inflicts torment. As for those with delicate sensitivities who are disgusted by the conception of God as an omnipotent who punishes, we should remind them of what the Turkish caliph used to do when he issued a sentence of execution by impalement upon his enemies, and what the executioner tasked with carrying out the sentence used to do when he would throw the victim on his stomach, then insert into the anus an iron-tipped stake, remaining atop him slowly until all the entrails were torn apart and the stake emerged from the neck, and how it was the executioner's duty to keep his victim alive until the stake exited his neck so he would feel all the necessary pains. And more awful than that is the gouging out of the eyes of captives with red-hot pokers from the fire. Are such tyrants supposed to be presented with a tea party by God because God is love? Rather, hell is the ultimate expression of love, as long as there exists no other means to make such people recognize that God is just. And it is a mercy in the sense that it is an instruction and education for those who refused to learn from all the books and messengers and who denied even the primaries of intellect and the beginnings of humanity. Would it be just for Hitler, who killed 20 million in a world war, skinned prisoners of war, executed thousands of them in gas chambers and burned them in crematoria, then upon defeat committed suicide, fleeing and escaping from confronting the result of his actions? Would it be just For absurdity alone, for the world to be absurdity upon absurdity to save this mass murderer from his guilt? Nothing around us in this disciplined, beautiful world indicates absurdity. Everything, from the largest stars to the smallest atoms, declares system, order, and precision. God is not love, nor is he the just, unless he places this man in the abyss of his deeds. The perspective, contemplative mind does not need philosophy to realize the reality of punishment, for it will discover the specter of this punishment within itself and within its inner being, and in the eyes of the guilty, and the gazes of murderers, and in the tears of the oppressed, and the grief of the aggrieved, and in the humiliation of captives, and the tyranny of the victors, and in the death rattle of the dying. It will perceive punishment and reckoning when it is enveloped by remorse. And remorse is the voice of innate nature at the moment of error. It is the minor resurrection and the lesser hellfire, a model of judgment. It is the warning light that illumines within the soul to indicate that there is a scale for deeds, and that there is truth and falsehood. Whoever is upon truth is upon a straight path, and his heart is content. And whoever is upon falsehood is in the abyss of remorse, and his heart is anguished. The punishment of this world is always a type of rectification, both on the level of the individual and on the level of nations. The defeat of 67 in Sinai was a lesson, just as a student's failure is a lesson, just as the pains of sickness and ill health are a lesson for one who lived a life of extravagance, luxury, softness, and pleasure. Punishment polishes the rust of the soul and refines its metal. We know of no prophet, reformer, artist, or genius who did not taste the severest punishment in the form of sickness, poverty, or persecution. Punishment from this angle is love. It is the price that must be paid for transitioning to a higher degree. If the wisdom in the punishment is sometimes hidden from us, it is because we do not comprehend everything. We do not know everything, and we do not see from the story except that limited stage between two parentheses called the world. What is before that and what is after that is for us a concealed unseen. Therefore, we must remain silent respectfully and not issue judgments. As for the manner of punishment after the resurrection, it cannot be specified in detail, because the hereafter is entirely unseen. What has been mentioned in the sacred books on this matter could be symbols and indications, just as we say to a boy who has not reached puberty when he asks us about sexual pleasure that it is like sugar or honey, because we find nothing in his dictionary of experiences other than that, and because that pleasure is for him an unseen that cannot be described with words from our limited language. It is an experience he has not tried at all. Likewise, paradise and hellfire are experiences that are for us unseen and cannot be described with words from our worldly dictionary. All that is possible is to provide descriptions by way of approximation, like the fire or lush gardens under which rivers flow. But what will happen is something far exceeding all these approximate descriptions, something no eye has seen and no human heart has ever conceived. One can say without error that hell is the lowest station. With all the sensory and meaning-related punishment that station entails, and that paradise is the highest station, with all the sensory and meaning-related bliss that station entails. The Sufis say that hell is the station of distance, distance from God and being veiled from God, and paradise is the station of proximity, with all the indescribable happiness that follows that nearness. Whoever is blind in this world will be blind in the hereafter and further astray. The blindness here is of the insight. It resembles what we see of degrees, stations, and disparities between the blind and the seeing, the guided and the astray. But in the hereafter, the disparity will be immense. See how we have favored some over others. And the hereafter is greater in degrees and greater in favor, to the degree that whoever will be in the lowest station will be in the state of those in the fire, his face darkened. That is the law of differentiation that governs all of existence, this world and the next, sovereignty and dominion, the unseen and the witnessed. For everyone is a rank, merit, station, and degree. No two are equal.
and transition from one degree to another only occurs in exchange for effort, action, trial, and tribulation. Whoever is in this world in the lowest degrees of insight, his state in the hereafter will also be in the lowest degrees. This is justice itself, that every human being is placed in his place, his degree, and his merit. This is what happens in this world unjustly, and what will happen in the hereafter justly. Punishment, in this sense, is justice, and reward is justice. Both are necessitated by the requirement that hard iron be extremely hard, so that engines are made from it, and that rubber be soft, so that tires are made from it, and that straw be cheap, so that broomheads are made from it, and fine cotton be for making pillows, and inferior cotton for unblocking drains. These are primaries and fundamentals asserted by innate nature and sound logic, needing no composition of philosophical articles, nor piling up of justifications and causes. This is why all religions are innate propositions, not admitting argument or denial. This is why it is an absolute truth accepted by sound minds that have not been corrupted by philosophy and sophistry, minds that have preserved their virginity and purity, and are free from the disease of obstinacy and stubborn denial. This is why the Sufi says that God does not need proof, rather God is the proof by which everything is proven. He is the constant by which we know the variables. He is the substance by which we perceive the differences of phenomena. He is the evidence by which we perceive the wisdom of the transient world. As for the intellect that demands proof for God's existence, it is an intellect that has lost rationality. Light reveals things to us and guides us to them. Things cannot be our proof for the light. We would have reversed the conditions like one walking in the light of day, then saying, "Where is your proof that the world is daytime? Prove it to me with evidence." Whoever has lost the soundness of his innate nature and the virginity of his heart has nothing left but argumentation and the convolutions of logic and theological rhetoric. He has lost everything, his path will be long, and he will never arrive. The one who protests against worldly punishment, frets, complains, curses life, and says it is an unbearable life, that no one consulted him before he was born, that he was created by force and sentenced to punishment by compulsion, and that this is a grave injustice. This rejecter, this complainer, is like an actor performing a role in a play which requires him to receive a beating and kicking every day in front of the audience. If this actor lost his memory and saw from the reel of his life only this role he performs between parentheses on the stage boards every day, he would protest, refusing to receive the punishment, saying that no one consulted him, that he was created by force, sentenced to punishment by compulsion, and condemned to humiliation before people without reasonable justification and without his choice from the beginning. This actor would forget that there was an agreement before the play began, that there was an assignment from the director, then acceptance of the assignment from the actor, then a covenant and pact to fulfill what was required. All this happened in freedom before the show started, and the actor accepted his role by choice. Indeed, he loved his role and sought it. But the actor has completely forgotten this period of time before standing on the stage boards. From here, his life, with all its responsibilities and pains, turned into a question mark and an incomprehensible puzzle. Such is the condition of the man who imagines that his entire life is his bodily existence in these worldly moments, that he is perishing and his fate is dust, and that he has no existence other than this three-dimensional existence on the stage of worldly life. This man has forgotten that he was a spirit in the dominion of the unseen, that he came to this world with a responsibility, that he accepted this responsibility and consented to it, and that between him and his Creator, the grand director of the drama of existence, there were covenants and pledges, and that after the drama of worldly existence comes the resurrection and reckoning. just as after the play comes criticism from the critics, and success or failure in the eyes of the audience, and dissent in their sight or assent in their view. It is forgetfulness and heedlessness, and a narrow, limited view that imagines the world as everything. This is what leads to the misguidance of thought, and it is what leads to perplexity in the face of punishment, evil, and pain. From here came the naming of the Quran as a remembrance and a reflection, a remembrance so that those of understanding may remember. The Prophet is a remembrance. You are but a remembrance. You are not a controller over them. This world is not the whole story. It is a chapter in a novel that had a beginning before birth and will have a continuation after death. Within this comprehensive story, punishment gains its meaning. The punishment of this world becomes a mercy from the Merciful One, by which He alerts us so that we do not become heedless. It is an attempt to awaken, to keep the senses tense and the mind questioning. It is constant reflection that this world will not be and cannot be paradise, and that it is merely a stage, and that attachment to it for its own sake leads its owner to a ruinous heedlessness. It is the punishment whose outward appearance is torment and whose inward reality is mercy. The one who punishes the other is in truth awakening him to reality and to absolute justice that misses not an atom's weight of good and an atom's weight of evil, and to certainty in the system of the organizer who perfected everything he created.